December. December 1st. In this world of ours, we do not so much go on and discover small things, rather we go on and discover big things. It is the detail that we see first. It is the design that we only see very slowly, and some men die never having seen it at all. We see certain squadrons in certain uniforms gallop past. We take an arbitrary fancy to this or that color, to this or that plume. But it often takes us a long time to realize what the fight is about, or even who is fighting whom. So in the modern intellectual world we can see flags of many colors, deeds of manifold interest. The one thing we cannot see is the map. We cannot see the simplified statement which tells us what is the origin of all the trouble. William Blake. December 2nd. Our wisdom, whether expressed in private or public, belongs to the world, but our folly belongs to those we love. Browning. December 3rd. Our fathers were large and healthy enough to make a thing humane, and not worry about whether it was hygienic. They were big enough to get into small rooms. Charles Dickens. December 4th. A cosmic philosophy is not constructed to fit a man. A cosmic philosophy is constructed to fit a cosmos. A man can no more possess a private religion than he can possess a private sun and moon. Introduction to Book of Job. December 5th. That Christianity is identical with democracy is the hardest of gospels. There is nothing that so strikes men with fear as the saying that they are all the sons of God. 12 Types. December 6th. St. Nicholas's Day. All the old wholesale customs in connection with Christmas were to the effect that one should not touch or see or know or speak of something before the actual coming of Christmas Day. Thus, for instance, children were never given their presents until the actual coming of the appointed hour. The presents were kept tied up in brown paper parcels, out of which an arm of a doll or the leg of a donkey sometimes accidentally stuck. I wish this principle were adopted in respect of modern Christmas ceremonies and publications. The editors of the magazines bring out their Christmas numbers so long before the time that the reader is more likely to be lamenting for the turkey of last year than to have seriously settled down to a solid anticipation of the turkey which is to come. Christmas numbers of magazines ought to be tied up in brown paper and kept for Christmas Day. On consideration, I should favor the editors being tied up in brown paper. Whether the leg or arm of an editor should ever be allowed to protrude, I leave to individual choice. All things considered. December 7th. We had talked for about half an hour about politics and God, for men always talk about the most important things to total strangers. It is because in the total stranger we perceive man himself. The image of God is not disguised by resemblances to an uncle or doubts of the wisdom of a mustache. The Club of Queer Trades. December 8th. He had found the thing which the modern people call impressionism, which is another name for that final skepticism which can find no floor to the universe. The Man Who Was Thursday. December 9th. There was a time when you and I and all of us were all very close to God, so that even now the color of a pebble or paint, the smell of a flower or a firework, comes to our hearts with a kind of authority and certainty, as if they were fragments of a muddled message or features of a forgotten face. To pour that fiery simplicity upon the whole of life is the only real aim of education, and closest to the child comes the woman. She understands. What's wrong with the world? December 10th. A man must love a thing very much if he not only practices it without any hope of fame or money, but even practices it without any hope of doing it well. Such a man must love the toils of the work more than any other man can love the rewards of it. Browning. December 11th. Among all the strange things that men have forgotten, the most universal and catastrophic lapse of memory is that by which they have forgotten that they are living on a star. Defendant. December 12th. Browning died. The poem Old Pictures in Florence suggests admirably that a sense of incompleteness may easily be a great advance upon a sense of completeness, that the part may easily and obviously be greater than the whole. And from this Browning draws, as he is fully justified in drawing, a definite hope for immortality and the larger scale of life. For nothing is more certain than that this world is the only world that we have known, or of which we could ever dream. The fact does remain that we have named it a strange world. In other words, we have certainly felt that this world did not explain itself, that something in its complete and patent picture has been omitted. And Browning was right in saying that in a cosmos where incompleteness implies completeness, life implies immortality. The second of the great Browning doctrines requires some audacity to express. It can only be properly stated as the hope that lies in the imperfection of God. That is to say, that Browning held that sorrow and self-denial, if they were the burdens of man, were also his privileges. He held that these stubborn sorrows and obscure valors might, to use a yet more strange expression, have provoked the envy of the Almighty. If man has self-sacrifice and God has none, then man has in the universe a secret and blasphemous superiority. And this tremendous story of a divine jealousy Browning reads into the story of the crucifixion. These are emphatically the two main doctrines or opinions of Browning, which I have ventured to characterize roughly as the hope in the imperfection of man, and more boldly as the hope in the imperfection of God. They are great thoughts, thoughts written by a great man, and they raise noble and beautiful doubts on behalf of faith which the human spirit will never answer or exhaust. Robert Browning. December 13th. Elder Father, though thine eyes shine with hoary mysteries, canst thou tell what in the heart of a cowslip blossom lies? Smaller than all lives that be, secret as the deepest sea, stands a little house of seeds, like an elfin's granary. Speller of the stones and weeds, skilled in nature's crafts and creeds, tell me what is in the heart of the smallest of the seeds. God Almighty, and with him, cherubim and seraphim, filling all eternity, Adonai Elohim. The Wild Night. December 14th. The rare strange thing is to hit the mark. The gross obvious thing is to miss it. Chaos is dull, because in chaos a train might go anywhere, to Baker Street or Baghdad. But man is a magician, and his whole magic is in this, that he does say Victoria, and lo, it is Victoria. The Man Who Was Thursday. December 15th. Men talk of philosophy and theology as if they were something specialistic and arid and academic. But philosophy and theology are not only the only democratic things, they are democratic to the point of being vulgar, to the point, I was going to say, of being rowdy. They alone admit all matters. They alone lie open to all attacks. There is no detail from buttons to kangaroos that does not enter into the gay confusion of philosophy. There is no fact of life, from the death of a donkey to the general post office, which has not its place to dance and sing in the glorious carnival of theology. G. F. Watts. December 16th. The Duke of Chester, the Vice President, was a young and rising politician. That is to say, he was a pleasant youth with flat, fair hair and a freckled face, with moderate intelligence and enormous estates. In public, his appearances were always successful, and his principle was simple enough. When he thought of a joke, he made it and was called brilliant. When he could not think of a joke, he said that this was no time for trifling, and was called able. In private, in a club of his own class, he was simply quite pleasantly frank and silly like a schoolboy. The innocence of Father Brown. December 17th. The personal is not a mere figure for the impersonal. Rather, the impersonal is a clumsy term for something more personal than common personality. God is not a symbol of goodness. Goodness is a symbol of God. William Blake. December 18th. The world is not to be justified as it is justified by the mechanical optimists. It is not to be justified as the best of all possible worlds. Its merit is precisely that none of us could have conceived such a thing, that we should have rejected the bare idea of it as miracle and unreason. It is the best of all impossible worlds. Charles Dickens. December 19th. The educated classes have adopted a hideous and heathen custom of considering death as too dreadful to talk about, and letting it remain a secret for each person, like some private malformation. The poor, on the contrary, make a great gossip and display about bereavement, and they are right. They have hold of a truth of psychology which is at the back of all the funeral customs of the children of men. The way to lessen sorrow is to make a lot of it. The way to endure a painful crisis is to insist very much that it is a crisis, to permit people who must feel sad at least to feel important. In this the poor are simply the priests of the universal civilization, and in their stuffy feasts and solemn chattering there is the smell of the baked meats of Hamlet, and the dust and echo of the funeral games of Patroclus. What's wrong with the world? December 20th. A crime is like any other work of art. Don't look surprised. Crimes are by no means the only works of art that come from an infernal workshop. But every work of art, divine or diabolic, has one indispensable mark. I mean that the center of it is simple, however the entourage may be complicated. The Innocence of Father Brown. December 21st, St. Thomas's Day. It was Huxley and Herbert Spencer and Bradlaugh who brought me back to orthodox theology. They sowed in my mind my first wild doubts of doubt. Our grandmothers were quite right when they said that Tom Paine and the freethinkers unsettled the mind. They do. They unsettled mine horribly. The rationalists made me question whether reason was of any use whatever, and when I had finished Herbert Spencer, I had got as far as doubting, for the first time, whether evolution had occurred at all. As I laid down the last of Colonel Ingersoll's atheistic lectures, the dreadful thought broke into my mind, "Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian." Orthodoxy. December 22nd. Pure and exalted atheists talk themselves into believing that the working classes are turning with indignant scorn from the churches. The working classes are not indignant against the churches in the least. The things the working classes really are indignant against are the hospitals. The people has no definite disbelief in the temples of theology. The people has a very fiery and practical disbelief in the temples of physical science. Charles Dickens. December 23rd. A turkey is more occult and awful than all the angels and archangels. Insofar as God has partly revealed to us an angelic world, He has partly told us what an angel means. But God has never told us what a turkey means, and if you go and stare at a live turkey for an hour or two, you will find by the end of it that the enigma has rather increased than diminished. All things considered. December 24th, Christmas Eve. The Truce of Christmas. Passionate peace is in the sky, and in the snow and silver sealed, the beasts are perfect in the field, and men seem men so suddenly. But take 10 swords and 10 times 10, and blow the bugle in praising men, for we are for all men under the sun, and they are against us every one, and misers haggle and madmen clutch, and there is peril in praising much, and we have the terrible tongues uncurled that praise the world to the sons of the world. The idle, humble hill and wood are bowed about the sacred birth, and for one little hour the earth is lazy with the love of good. But ready are you, and ready am I, if the battle blow and the guns go by, for we are for all men under the sun, and they are against us, every one. And the men that hate herd all together, to pride and gold, and the great white feather. And the thing is graven in star and stone, that the men who love are all alone. Hunger is hard, and time is tough, but bless the beggars and kiss the kings, for hope has broken the heart of things, and nothing was ever praised enough. but hold the shield for a sudden swing, and point the sword when you praise a thing. For we are for all men under the sun, and they are against us, every one. And mime and merchant, thane and thrall, hate us because we love them all. Only till Christmas tide go by, passionate peace is in the sky. The Commonwealth. December 25th, Christmas Day. There fared a mother driven forth, out of an inn to roam. In the place where she was homeless, all men are at home. The crazy stable close at hand, with shaking timber and shifting sand, grew a stronger thing to abide and stand than the square stones of Rome. For men are homesick in their homes, and strangers under the sun, and they lay their heads in a foreign land whenever the day is done. Here we have battle and blazing eyes, and chance and honor and high surprise, but our homes are under miraculous skies, where the Yule tale was begun. A child in a foul stable, where the beasts feed and foam, only where he was homeless are you and I at home. We have hands that fashion and heads that know, but our hearts we lost how long ago, in a place no chart nor ship can show, under the sky's dome. This world is wild as an old wives' tale, and strange the plain things are. The earth is enough, and the air is enough, for our wonder and our war. But our rest is as far as the fire drake swings, and our peace is put in impossible things, where clashed and thundered unthinkable wings round an incredible star. To an open house in the evening, home shall all men come, to an older place than Eden, and a taller town than Rome, to the end of the way of the wandering star, to the things that cannot be and that are, to the place where God was homeless, and all men are at home. The House of Christmas. Daily News. December 26th, Boxing Day. There are innumerable persons with eyeglasses and green garments who pray for the return of the Maypole or the Olympian Games. But there is about these people a haunting and alarming something which suggests that it is just possible that they do not keep Christmas. If so, where is the sense of all their dreams of festive traditions? Here is a solid and ancient festive tradition still plying a roaring trade in the streets, and they think it vulgar. If this is so, let them be very certain of this, that they are the kind of people who in the time of the Maypole would have thought the Maypole vulgar, who in the time of the Canterbury pilgrimage would have thought the Canterbury pilgrimage vulgar, who in the time of the Olympian Games would have thought the Olympian Games vulgar. Nor can there be any reasonable doubt that they were vulgar. Let no man deceive himself. If by vulgarity we mean coarseness of speech, rowdiness of behavior, gossip, horseplay, and some heavy drinking, vulgarity there always was, wherever there was joy, wherever there was faith in the gods. Heretics. December 27th, St. John's Day. Christ did not love humanity. He never said he loved humanity. He loved men. Neither he nor anyone else can love humanity. It is like loving a gigantic centipede. And the reason that the Tolstoyans can even endure to think of an equally distributed love is that their love of humanity is a logical love, a love into which they are coerced by their own theories, a love which would be an insult to a tomcat. 12 types. December 28th, Holy Innocents' Day. That little urchin with the gold-red hair, whom I have just watched toddling past my house, she shall not be lopped and lamed and altered. Her hair shall not be cut short like a convict's. No, all the kingdoms of the earth shall be hacked about and mutilated to suit her. The winds of the world shall be tempered to that lamb unshorn. All crowns that cannot fit her head shall be broken. All raiment and building that does not harmonize with her glory shall waste away. Her mother may bid her bind her hair, for that is natural authority, but the emperor of the planet shall not bid her cut it off. She is the human and sacred image. All around her the social fabric shall sway and split and fall. The pillars of society shall be shaken, and the roofs of ages come rushing down. and not one hair of her head shall be harmed. What's wrong with the world? December 29th. St. Thomas a Becket. When 4 knights scattered the blood and brains of St. Thomas of Canterbury, it was not only a sign of anger, but a sort of black admiration. They wished for his blood, but they wished even more for his brains. Such a blow will remain forever unintelligible unless we realize what the brains of St. Thomas were thinking about just before they were distributed over the floor. They were thinking about the great medieval conception that the Church is the judge of the world. Becket objected to a priest being tried even by the Lord Chief Justice, and his reason was simple, because the Lord Chief Justice was being tried by the priest. The judiciary was itself sub judice. The kings were themselves in the dock. The idea was to create an invisible kingdom without armies or prisons, but with complete freedom to condemn publicly all the kingdoms of the earth. What's wrong with the world? December 30th. Progress is not an illegitimate word, but it is logically evident that it is illegitimate for us. It is a sacred word, a word that can only rightly be used by rigid believers and in the ages of faith. Heretics. December 31st. With all the multiplicity of knowledge, there is one thing happily that no man knows, whether the world is old or young. The Defendant.